So today we're going to talk about step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. We tried to carry this message to other addicts and alcoholics to practice these principles in all our affairs. One of the things to note is that there are more pages dedicated to step 12 in the big book than to any other step. You would think the first step would be the most important one, and it is. But step 12 is a crucial piece of my recovery. The truth is, I can get pretty good at the first 11 steps, and I'm just collecting power for Chris's use, and I never quite have enough to be okay. It's when I start transmitting what I'm finding that I end up with more power in my life than I could ever have when I'm just collecting it for my use. And that's what the service of the 12th step is about. You guys, I like analogies, you guys know that. You've seen those champagne glass towers? I know that's only moderately inappropriate in a rehab center, but yeah, what am I? Hey, you ever seen those yeah. So let's say the glass holds 4 ounces of liquid. Let's say that's how much it takes to be spiritually fit and to be full and to feel good. But if I pour 4 ounces into one glass, it immediately begins to evaporate. It's never quite 100%. And that's what it's like when I'm collecting the power for my own use. But when I create a stack like that, and I start pouring that spiritual power into that top glass, and it flows over into the level beneath it, and they all get completely full, and they flow over into the level beneath it, at any given time, all of those glasses have more than 4 ounces. They have more than they need to be okay. And that's sort of a mental picture of why transmitting the power is more important than just collecting it for my own use. And that's a big piece of step 12. So step 12, there are 3 pieces. Having had a spiritual awakening, carry this message, and practice these principles. And I want to look at each of those 3 pieces individually and talk about what I think they mean. So the first one is having had a spiritual awakening. People talk about the 12th step like it's only about being of service and helping other addicts and alcoholics and sponsorship and things like that. But we don't want to skip this first bit, these first 11 words. I think it's 11 words. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. Not one possible result or an occasional outcome, but as the result. If I do exactly what the steps ask me to do, I will have a spiritual awakening. Doesn't even matter if I believe the steps work. If I do what they say to do, I get what they say I get. It's like opening a recipe book to the chocolate cake recipe and going, that will never make cake. But if I follow the instructions, I get cake. Doesn't matter what I believe. The first cake's crappy, but it's still cake. And the more I make it, the better I get at making cake. Before long, I start realizing what the ingredients do because I left some out last time and it wasn't good. And if I keep making the cake on a daily basis, after a couple of months, I can make the cake without having to read the recipe because I've done it a bunch by now. And after 4 or 5 months, my life is full of cake all the time, and I can spend my energy on things like icing and decorations. And my recovery is the same way. So I have to have this spiritual awakening. But as the result of the steps, that's what the steps do, is provide a spiritual awakening, which begs the question, what the hell is an awakening? Well, if you look up the word awakening, it says the act or moment of becoming aware of something. There's an appendix in the back of the big book that discusses spiritual awakening. 2 varieties, the white light variety that Bill Wilson talks about in his story, and the educational variety. A white light spiritual awakening is like you're cruising along and suddenly God reveals himself in a spectacular fashion and you know that you are no longer alone and there is a higher power, and if you do what you need to do to stay connected, you're going to be fine. It's all just revealed in a big moment. That doesn't happen for most of us. Most of us have what they call the educational variety spiritual awakening. And I misunderstood that when I first heard it. I thought the educational variety spiritual awakening meant I was going to educate myself into understanding God. I was going to think about this enough till it made sense. But really what the educational variety spiritual awakening looks like is I take the actions that the steps require, even though they're scary. I have faith in the process, and I take the action and I gain an experience. And I take an action and I gain an experience. And I take an action and I gain an experience. And the cumulative effect of all these new experiences gradually changes how I see the world and wakes me up. And my personal spiritual awakening happened at about 16 months sober. I've told you guys, like when I got sober, I didn't believe in God. I didn't like anything that smelled like religion. And I went to a lot of meetings where they said the Lord's Prayer at the end of the meeting. And I didn't say the Lord's Prayer at the end of meetings. I'm not a Christian. I'm not saying the stupid prayer. And what I would do at the end of every awesome meeting is I'd look around the room and see who was not saying the prayer like me. Trying to find my people inside of my people. But I did what the program asked me to do. Whatever action they asked me to take, I took. And I gained the experience. And I took the action and I gained the experience. And I kept doing that for 16 months. And then I went to a reunion at the treatment center where I got sober out in the hill country. There were 800 alumni there. They had an amazing speaker all morning on Saturday morning. And then we took a break to go to lunch. And 800 people stood in a circle on the lawn and were saying the Lord's Prayer, holding hands. And I'm looking around this giant circle doing what I do, trying to see who's not saying the prayer. And I got halfway around that circle of 800 people. And it occurred to me that if even half of these people were as miserable and desperate and hopeless as I was when I came here, this is a miracle. And it was the first time the word miracle had any real substance, right? Oh, yay, we got the money, it's a miracle. No, it was petty theft, actually. Oh, he didn't pull me over, it's a miracle. That's dumb luck. But this was 800 crackheads and junkies and alcoholics, fully dressed and in their right mind, out enjoying a day in the hill country on purpose. That was a miracle. And it was at that moment that all of those small spiritual experiences piled together and the bush caught fire for me. Suddenly the cumulative weight of all of that experience that I had changed something in me, and I could no longer deny what was happening. The world was different. The educational variety, we want it to be a big deal. We like big deals. Capital S, capital A, spiritual awakening, But really, most of the time, we're just going about our business, and we work the steps, and we trust our higher power, we take a new action, and we gain the experience, and we trust our higher power, and we take a new action, and we gain the experience. And those new experiences begin to outweigh our old experiences. And then one day we go, oh, and everything's different. That's a spiritual awakening. It's also not a one and done situation. Even if you have a white light spiritual experience is like Thanksgiving dinner. It's huge, it's awesome, I gotta eat tomorrow. I still have to have another spiritual experience the next day. So, however you get there, it's important that you keep going until you get there. And I've been doing this for 19 years, and my life gets bigger, and I'll have a new area that I don't know how to trust God in, and it's scary, but I work the steps, and I take the action, and I gain the experience. And at some point I'll go, oh, this is okay now. I'm not scared of this new stuff anymore. So I'm still having spiritual awakenings. I'm counting on that. There's still stuff coming my way, thank God. Life is getting ready to get interesting, if not better. And I'm counting on the fact that if I trust God and take action, I will hit a place where I go, oh, this is totally doable. And it just continues to happen. In the 12 and 12 on page 106, it says, our 12th step also says that as a result of practicing all the steps, we have found something called a spiritual awakening. To new AAs, this often seems like a dubious, improbable state of affairs. What do you mean when you talk about spiritual awakening, they ask. Maybe there are as many definitions of spiritual awakening as there are people who've had them, but certainly each genuine one has something in common with the others. When a man or a woman has a spiritual awakening, the most important meaning of it is that he is now able to do, feel, and believe that which he could not do before on his unaided strength and resources alone. He's been granted a gift which amounts to a new state of consciousness and being. At least in some small part, he has made himself ready to receive it by doing the steps. That's how I make myself ready to receive it, is I take the actions that the program asks me to take. I gain the new experiences that come from that. And the cumulative effect of those spiritual experiences changes how I see the world. Big Book talks about a complete psychic change, but all that is a change in perception, and how I get that is not from trying to see things different, it's from changing my experience with the world. And so my perception changes with my new experience. So I've had this spiritual awakening as a result of the steps, and that takes me to the second part, carrying the message. I remember when I was sitting where you guys are, and during the first 5 or 6 months of my sobriety, it felt like every time I went anywhere, somebody in the meeting was saying some stuff that I needed to know, or I was going to die if I didn't remember it. There's so much important stuff, and I'm hearing it all the time, and it's in one ear and out the other, and I can't remember it, and I'm freaked out. So when it comes time to start sponsoring, I go, oh my God, I'm never going to remember everything. I can't possibly, how can I do it? Carrying the message, oh my God, it's so huge. But really, it's so much simpler than I want to make it. I mean, I'm an alcoholic and an addict. I can complicate a circle. You know, this is a very simple message. At its core, the message that I'm carrying is that I've had a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps, powerful enough to completely remove me from that hopeless state of addiction that I was trapped in. I worked the steps. I've had a spiritual awakening, and I no longer struggle to stay sober. At its core, that's the only message I got to carry. The rest is details about how I got there. You can start carrying a message even now. You know, the reason they tell people to wait a year to sponsor is because once you've been sober for 12 months, the incidence of relapse tends to go down almost 70%. And we don't want sponsors relapsing all the time. But the truth is, for a lot of you guys, if you try to wait until you're a year sober to start sponsoring people, you won't make it to a year sober. And you've got to find ways to be of service, even if it's not official sponsorship, early on. One of the things I suggest is when you go to an outside meeting, you look around when they ask who has less than 30 days and they raise their hand at the beginning of the meeting. And after the meeting, you go talk to that person. Even if they've got 12 days and you've got 13. And the only thing you've got to tell them is, this is the weirdest damn thing I've ever done in my life. And they'll go, oh, thank God, I thought it was just me. Everybody else seems so comfortable. I'm freaking out. And you go, yeah, dude, totally. And then I make a connection to this person, and they make a connection to me, and neither one of us is alone anymore. For that moment, that matters. Some of you guys are already doing this. Think back to the first day you were here. Chances are somebody who'd been here for a minute came up to you and introduced themselves, kind of showed you around a little bit, told you what was happening where. And whether that person knew it or not, they were carrying a message to you on your first day that 3 weeks is doable. I've been here 3 weeks. It's doable. Even if they didn't say it out loud, they were showing you through their actions that staying here and working the program and going to the classes and everything else was worth doing. Some of you are now doing that for the guys who are just coming in the door. That's a powerful message to carry. Some of the guys who are here in their first couple of days can hear you better than they can hear me. Because right now they're wondering if they can really do this for the next couple of days. And you just did it for the first couple of days. And that's a powerful message to carry. You can share your experience with people at any time, even if it's relatively limited. And we make a connection with each other when we do that. And we don't get cut off in our disease and start feeling alone and disconnected. And by connecting to you, I can stay connected to a higher power, just the same way as by connecting to a higher power, I can feel connected to you. It's all important. And then part 3 of the step is practicing these principles in all our affairs. What the hell does that mean? We get to step 12, and they're going, by the time you get here, you should have had a spiritual awakening and you should start go help people. And then the last thing they say is, oh yeah, and by the way, keep doing all the steps in every area of your life. And that's the end. Practice these principles, practice the steps in everything you do. Well, how the hell do I do that? I mean, I understand at first flush how I'm supposed to practice these steps on my drinking and my drug use. But how do I apply them to anything else? Well, we'll talk about that. First, Well, look at it this way. Here's my day. Here's a 24-hour chunk of day. This is sleep. This is getting ready for work. This is being at work. This is taking care of business. This is family. This is free time. And then I get this, which is my recovery. And I start going, how the heck am I supposed to find time for this in here? I'm already busy all day, every day I'm busy. What do I do? Well, all right, I won't sleep as much, and maybe I just won't, I'll stop, and eventually I'll stop finding time for this. But what if, instead of trying to squeeze this in here, what if my whole day was my recovery? What does that look like? Practically, what does that look like? How do I work the steps on my job? Well, if you have the kind of job I have, you work with people. And people are often quite wrong. Somebody is going to do something that annoys me or scares me, because I also have a boss. And I can do inventory on that, because I have to work with this person tomorrow. And I don't want to be a jerk. And I don't want to be miserable and afraid every time I see him coming. So I can do step work on that stuff so that I can show up and be the person I believe I need to be. So I can show up on time. You know, I can show up, and if I have a question, I can have the courage to ask it instead of worrying they'll think I'm dumb. You know, I can have the courage to admit that I'm worth what I think I'm worth pay-wise and go and ask for that. There's all kind of ways to work the steps on the fears and the resentments of being at work. What about with the family? Well, once again, if your family's like mine, they're people. And they're my family, it's my wife, it's my kids. They piss me off, they scare the crap out of me on a regular basis. But I need to show up and not be big angry Chris, because it's not helpful to anybody. Nothing gets done when I start getting angry. Takes me, plus, I don't know if you guys are like me or not. Sadly, most of you are. But if I really let that anger happen and that full adrenaline dump happens and stuff like that, for the next 5 hours, it feels like I just stopped smoking crack. I got a ton of chemicals in my body that I now got to wait for my body to get rid of. That's miserable. So I got to stop letting myself get that mad, which means I've got inventory to do. I've got to get my higher power involved. I worked the steps on sleep. That sounds a little stupid, but I did. And here's what it looked like. Not really inventory, but I know that if I need to be at work by 8:30, and I'm going to spend half an hour doing my own awakening, that's 8 a.m. And 20 minutes getting ready, that's 7:40. And I'm going to work out for an hour, that's 6:40. And then I've got 20 minutes of other stuff, that's 6:20. So I need to set my alarm really for about 6 a.m. to make sure I got plenty of time to do everything I need to do to get to work on time without having to hurry. I also know that I need 7 hours of sleep to function well and to be able to get up when the alarm goes off, right? I mean, I can get up after 6 hours, I'm grumpy, and it's harder. So I need 7 hours of sleep. That means I need to be in bed around 11. That means I need to turn everything off by about 10:45, 10:40. Stop watching TV, stop doing whatever it is I'm doing, and just be quiet for a few minutes so that when I lay down, I can actually go to sleep. So I have an alarm set on my phone that goes off, and when I turn the alarm off, either I have to shut everything off because I believe it's what God would have me do so that I can get the rest I need so that I can be the man I need to be tomorrow, or I make the conscious decision that I'm not going to do what I believe God wants me to do and watch until the end of the episode. And then I get to see how that goes in the morning. And eventually, more often than not, I just do it because it makes tomorrow better. Whatever I think I'm going to get out of that last 30 or 40 minutes of staying up, it's not happening. If I don't have it already by 10:30 at night, I'm not going to find it by 11:15. So I just go to bed. So I'm practicing these principles in all my affairs. Now there's another part to that where I was told that if I can't practice these principles in all my affairs, then those affairs may need to go for now. If I can't work the program and be the person that God wants me to be in a romantic relationship, then I shouldn't be in one right now. Right now is the operative word. If I can't go back to my high-stress profession and stay connected to God and stay sober, then maybe I don't need to go back to that job quite yet. If I can't go back to my apartment with my significant other and stay connected to God and stay sober, maybe I don't need to go do that yet either. Yet is the operative word. There are a lot of yets in addiction. You guys know those yets, right? I haven't been arrested yet. I haven't overdosed yet. What else? Haven't hit bottom yet. Yeah, I haven't used IV drugs yet. Haven't lost my kids yet. Haven't lost my family yet. Haven't been to prison yet. But there's a whole other set of yets in recovery. So here's my life, and here's my comfort zone. They're the same size. That means I can move around in there and not be freaked out all the time. And once I get sober, without even really trying, my life goes whoop and gets bigger. And now my life is bigger than my comfort zone. But if I work the steps and I practice these principles, gradually this new area, I will trust God and take action enough to where it's not scary and my comfort zone will catch up. And then my life will do this. And I've got this whole area that I've got to trust God, take action until it's not scary. And then my life does this, and then does this, and then it does this, and it just keeps going. Right? This circle right here for you guys is treatment. It's where you're sitting right here, right this minute. You may not quite have your comfort zone may actually be a little bit smaller than that currently. But by the time you get into your last week or so, you'll be comfortable being here. You'll feel pretty good about being able to stay sober here because you've got several weeks worth of experience of doing it. The next circle is sober living, or wherever you go after this. And getting a job, getting a car, getting a place of your own. Maybe going back to school, getting into a real relationship. Yet. But if I don't keep practicing these principles, if I don't keep working the steps on this new stuff where I don't have any experience of knowing how to show up and do it, and my fear stays like it is, and my life keeps getting bigger and my fear grows with it, and my comfort zone's down here in this tiny little box, and pretty soon the weight of that freaks me out and I get high. So I gotta do this stuff every time life starts to expand a little bit. I gotta work the steps on it so I can know what actions to take so that I can stop being afraid of the new demands in my life. It's how I build the spiritual foundation I need to have a big, cool life. Because sober is great, but it's really only a start. I just wanted to stop hurting and overdosing and going to jail when I went to treatment. That's really what I wanted to do. And that was great for a minute. Just not hurting is great for a minute. But fear of going back where you came from will only keep you motivated for so long. At a certain point, you've got to shift it around and stop being afraid of going back where you were and start being excited to go where you're headed. But that only happens if I'm building daily practice so that I can remove the fear of all the new stuff that's happening. And the cumulative effect of that, I keep trusting God and taking action, and my comfort zone grows, and it grows, and it grows. And then I'm presented with an opportunity that freaks me out because it's so cool. But because I've been practicing these principles in all my affairs as my life has continued to grow, I'm able to sit down and do some fear inventory on that and talk with my sponsor about it and go back to the people who offered me the opportunity and say yes. And then I get to do a ton more step work once I start the new thing, whether it's a job or school or who knows what it's going to be for you guys. But if I'm not doing this stuff all the time, like muscle memory. I want to be that dude in the park who's doing Tai Chi, right? It never stops. I may be thinking about my taxes, but the movement never stops, right? And that's how my program needs to be. It's just this functional thing that I do. But it means I got to get good at it. How many of you guys have ever started a new job and wanted to quit 5 days in? Because I feel stupid and I don't know what I'm doing, and but that's the nature of a new job. I'm not supposed to know, right? And sobriety is the same way. It's clumsy and uncomfortable. But if I keep doing it, putting my hands on it on a regular basis. We've all got experience where I did this thing last year and it went pretty good, but I haven't done it in a year and I can't remember quite how I did it last time. That happens every time I have to set up the damn Christmas tree. I did this a year ago, it came out pretty good, I don't know how that happened, damn it. I spent half an hour freaked out, it's never gonna work again. Okay, it's fine, because I don't do it very often. But if I do this, if I practice this stuff on a regular daily basis, it becomes fluid in my hands. I was talking about one of my daughters was trying to learn to play the guitar, and it was just very frustrated. And she asked me, I've been playing my whole life, she asked me, what's the most important thing I can do? And I told her, stop trying to play the guitar. And she said, what are you talking about? You're supposed to encourage me. I went, no, I don't mean don't play the guitar anymore. I meant stop trying to figure out what to do with your hands. And for the next week, I want you to hold that guitar in your lap all day, every day, no matter what else you're doing. Watching YouTube videos, talking with your sister, texting, whatever, have your hands on the guitar, put it in your lap. Because right now it feels like a foreign object. But if you hold it in your lap several hours a day for a week, it'll feel like it belongs there. Then you can start trying to figure out what to do with your fingers. And that's what she did. And she was able to make the next step in learning. If I'm willing to dedicate myself and be uncomfortable while I'm, I feel stupid because I stayed mad for 2 days and forgot that I had inventory to do. But then that doesn't mean I don't need to go ahead and do the inventory of the thing that upset me 2 days ago. I just do it. And gradually I get better at shortening the time between the arrival of the problem and the arrival of the solution. And I get to get into the solution quicker and quicker, which is great because I want a big, cool life and I got stuff to do and I can't afford to be freaked out all the time. And that's all we got. Thanks, guys.